For the what?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we already said that we weren't going to decide, so if you get a...
Give us opportunity to discuss it for the full board.
Okay.
For policy.
Does Lisa know this?
Well,
What is this?
well, I
That's
did
not what
mention
happened
that.
in policy.
Okay. I call to order the March 23rd, 2015 regular meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to please silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
They had to vote.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
President.
Ms. Bolton?
Present.
Mrs. Copeland-Dansby?
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman? Here. Mr. Manera?
Here.
Mr. Nelms?
Yeah.
President Coons?
Here. I would like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda to add a resolution regarding a request for a waiver for alcohol use by the Cincinnati Saints at Withrow Stadium.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Dansby. Any discussion? I'm going to replace my broken chair as the discussion starts.
I'll concede to the chair before I make any comments regarding this resolution.
Yeah, we talked at length about this during policy.
Oh, we have to, oh, no. I think we're just now asking to add. Yeah, we're not.
Okay, so we'll discuss.
Well, yeah, it's just for the waiver.
I didn't realize we were ready to vote on this. I thought it had been
No.
assigned to us to continue the conversation.
Exactly.
Waiver.
Yeah, so this is a motion to change the agenda for tonight to add the resolution, which, of course, we'll discuss before voting on, and et cetera.
All right.
Was there a first and a second? I didn't hear that.
And
For the
so,
waiver?
any discussion for amending the agenda?
Amending?
I don't think we should amend the agenda.
I don't think we're ready to vote on this waiver,
Asking for a waiver.
this alcohol waiver.
Okay, so if I could provide some background, the reasoning that this has been put on is because this discussion, while it has gone on in policy committee for some time, the Cincinnati Saints organization needs to know how they were going to proceed with their season. And this affects what they do. Much similar to what we did with the Cincinnati Chamber Orchestra a couple weeks ago, adding a waiver onto the agenda to be voted on late. That's what we plan to do tonight. Again, it will come to a discussion and a vote as a resolution. So this would be to add it to the agenda tonight, and we can get whatever input policy had in tonight's meeting added to that discussion for us.
Mr. President, I have an issue with this from the standpoint, first of all, that we have to amend the agenda to do something that has not even worked its way through the committee that it was assigned to. And I don't want us to make policy based upon the convenience of a particular vendor versus what is best for the district. And I don't want to circumvent the committee system that's been looking at this. And I know that the policy committee, under the leadership of the chair, has said that this particular dialogue can take place with the full board upon the policy folks bringing what we learned tonight and talked about tonight. This is stunning to me, frankly.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton.
Yeah, and I think we had said the last one there was some precedent for. We had approved that group in the past last year for the opera. There's no precedent for selling beer at one of our stadiums, which is why we assumed it would have been assigned to our committee to look at and come back with recommendations for. And I think I would be very worried about voting now on something that we don't have a policy for yet. I just think our policy shouldn't be, like the timing of our policy shouldn't be because an organization needs a response from us. It should be based on what we think is going to be best for the district.
Yeah, my position, because there's a precedence for this, And because this issue really is very, very, very sensitive, that we have to be very methodical about how we proceed. Now, in my research, I found no high school allowing for alcohol beverages to be sold at its venue. At colleges, yes. At professional stadiums, yes, but not at high schools. So with the feedback we've gotten from our in-house authority, Mr. Durka, we've heard from the superintendent, we've heard from everybody that has a part to play in this, the process to be rushed and circumvented, even with the timeline for the Saints requesting the use of our field, I think it's really going to be a disservice to the whole discussion as a board and the decision we need to make collectively. So even though this is being pushed through, I don't feel that the timing for it is appropriate.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Mr. President, the resolution, was this written by the administration?
It was written by our board staff.
Who?
Board staff.
And I have a question.
As a result of, I'm sorry, as a result of committee request?
No, as a result of board member request.
We received a packet of information, background information on sales of alcohol. Where did that come from? I think that was.
In our weekend packet, I
Yes.
think.
The bullet points, you mean? Is that, yeah, so that was for, that was where we had come to as a policy committee for one-off requests, like one-off inside requests. We wanted the full board to know just where we had gotten to at that point, and then per last week's COW, we said we would continue the conversation from Wednesday's COW in today's policy committee meeting. So that was just more of an FYI to keep the board abreast of what the policy committee had been talking about. And then coming out of today's policy committee meeting, the next step was supposed to be that I would be writing a memo to the full board on what each group had said. So to Chris's point, we had heard from our superintendent, we'd heard from various folks on the board, administration, et cetera, for this sale of beer at a stadium. And so we were going to keep the board abreast of where we were in that conversation.
So for the purpose of what's on the floor, which is to change the agenda and to try to understand what has been said, I don't recall, maybe I'm wrong, but was the Cincinnati Saints proposal given to the policy, or was the policy given to the policy committee to review? Because we don't have any changes yet, I mean, at this moment, the policy is on a case-by-case basis, right? And I think just to move this along, the change of the agenda gives us an opportunity to further discuss this issue. I just want to know if we'll be able to move along to that point so we can have that discussion.
That's a helpful clarification.
Mr. President, if I could, I appreciate this, and I think we should vote on the waiver. I think part of the discussion is why we should not change the agenda, because we're not necessarily ready based upon who's been working on this. But I worry that if we're trying to put this forward prior to the policy being developed for the convenience of a vendor, and so that it can come in before the policy committee has finished its work on developing a policy. But by the way, this is a complete departure from practice, policy, and procedure. This is a complete departure. This is not just a continuation of what we've had or what we haven't done or whatever. So this is a complete departure, and therefore one would assume that we need to have some further discussion regarding the policy. I don't think this is just is this coming from PPE?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Bakes?
What I would suggest, because I agree with Ms. Bolton that this is a departure from policy, then instead of requiring a vote tonight, that we adhere to our own policy in introducing this resolution tonight and letting it lay over to the next business meeting. That would be an introduction. We would be moving on it. We would have the opportunity for policy to take a look at it, and we would be abiding by our own policy. And it is part of our policy. So I would be willing to, approve, yes, let's take a look at this, and this is the first introduction. And then you can let the Saints know, or who's ever in touch with the organization, that we're moving on it, but our policy does not allow us for a board member to bring forward a resolution without a layover, unless it's of an emergency nature, then we do the 48-hour waiver. So,
Well, there would be a 48-hour waiver for this as well.
well, there would have to be, but we are in violation of our own policy. And from the conversation, I'd rather see the introduction tonight and the study of it, and then the vote, than to see it go down tonight, which it sounds like it probably would. At least we're moving forward.
Mr. Nelms?
I'm in agreement with that because I think it can coincide with the summary that came out of policy for recommendations and feedback for you two to have more clarifying information on what was discussed in policy before moving forward. So that might be appropriate. But we want to also practice what we preach.
Unbelievable.
And if it means adhering to our own policy and procedure, then we need to do that. Because if you set a precedence now with this situation, it's going to open up the doors for other committees to follow suit.
Is there any further input before we come to a vote?
No, I think that we need to stay on target with the request on the table right now is to amend the agenda. I think a lot of the conversation is preliminary because it's not up for a vote. I also think we need to take into consideration the special circumstance that was given to the last group, during the last business meeting, whereas we did a 48-hour chamber orchestra and that. So I think we just need to be careful that we don't set a precedence to give special attention per a vendor for whatever the reason. So.
Ms. Wagner, please.
What group was that?
The Chamber Orchestra. Ms. Wagner, please.
That come out of committee, though?
Yes.
Yeah, both of the requests were before a committee.
Agreed.
So.
But this one's not out of committee yet. This isn't coming out of PPE yet.
No, the one introduced last time did definitely come from PPE, for sure.
Ms. Wagner, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
No.
This is just to change the agenda to discuss it. I thought.
Well, you can
we were following
introduce
your
it.
resolution, or following your recommendation.
We don't have to vote to change the agenda. You could just introduce it. You were
It's not on the
introducing this as, we could do it under other business. You were introducing this as a resolution to vote on it. If you want to change the agenda to introduce the agenda, if you want to change the vote to introduce this, not to vote on it, I'll support it. But to vote on it, I'm not going to support it because I would prefer it be introduced per our policy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your experience in this, so help me understand. My understanding was if we had amended the agenda, we could still put it on, and then perhaps during the discussion of the resolution, table it as you say, and use that as an introduction.
Well, I don't even want to table it. I want to go by our policy.
Okay, so the recommendation from Ms. Bates is to introduce this resolution during the inquiries and updates.
That could be, I mean, that or other, is that other business? That's what.
Yeah, we
I'm
only
not,
have
I'm not
other
quite sure,
business.
President Coons, but I think that you were asking the board to okay the opportunity to add something to the agenda.
Right.
To discuss.
Not to no.
But just to add it, and
No,
it can be,
it's a resolution.
but it could be discussed under other business. But I think if I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think you were just bringing it to the attention that you wanted to add something to.
Yeah, I think the full board needs to discuss, this is what's being proposed, and whether we vote on it or not, it needs to be introduced.
Yes.
Out of respect.
Is that what if we're voting to introduce it?
Yes.
To change the agenda, then I'm fine with that. So I'm an aye, but not to vote on the resolution.
Right.
Okay, and I'm fine with that.
There's a point of clarification for me. This is a resolution that's being introduced just to be introduced.
Per our
not-
policy.
Yeah, not to be voted on tonight.
Right.
Is it, so we have to vote on a change of agenda because this is not on the agenda. Correct. So we have to vote on the change of agenda. And then during the resolution piece, the resolution segment, is that when you can have a 48-hour waiver?
We're not going to
You don't need it because we're not going to vote on it. We're just introducing it. So can the president then introduce this when we get to resolutions?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Well, let me ask a point of clarification then. Are you saying, Mr. President, that you are just wanting to make an amendment to the agenda to add it, to introduce it, or are you going to bring it for a full vote during updates, inquiries, or the resolution
Just for
portion?
introduction at this
Okay.
point.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yes, based on the will of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Aye.
Madam, yes.
Ms.
Treasurer,
Bolton?
thank you.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Yes.
President Coons?
Aye, thank you, board, for that meaty discussion. Now, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on February 9th, 2015, regular meeting February 9, 2015, special meeting February 23rd, 2015, regular meeting February 23rd, 2015, special meeting February 27, 2015, special meeting March 9th, 2015, regular meeting March 9, 2015, and special public meeting March 17th, 2015.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. We're now at the item on our agenda for committee reports. Mrs. Hoffman, as chair of the policy committee, would you please present the revised March 6, 2015 committee meeting report?
Sure.
How ironic.
So on March 6th, we we had an additional policy committee meeting in addition to, I guess, our monthly meeting to just talk about policy 7510, use of district facilities and property as it related to alcohol use. Coming out of that meeting, we talked a lot about the more typical requests we get. So a one-off event, the opera wants to come or someone wants to have a wedding, that kind of stuff. And we, as the board had directed us, came up with much tighter kind of stipulations that an organization would have to meet. That's what we presented in our packets of just keeping the board abreast of where we're heading. In that conversation, we also started talking about very different events, which were beer sales at a stadium kind of event. Coming out of that meeting, one of our action was to talk to the full board in last week's COW. And so as we know, we had that discussion, and we will come back to you with what we discussed at this month's meeting. So that's where that meeting ended.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Ms. Bates, as chair of the Student Achievement Committee, would you please present the March 9, 2015 committee meeting report?
Yes, as you see in the minutes, we discussed many assignments that were given to the board, and we further assigned the assignments to our administration and asked them to come back to this committee. And one is the report on math scores and initiatives, the social studies clarification, how to expand preschool seats, students writing op-ed articles, the Bellwether initiative, the College Credits Plus and AP courses, preschool promise. So we have a hefty workload ahead of us, and I'm going to be meeting with Dr. Lofton to go through the assignments. I've already seen that Dr. Mitchell, Ms. Mitchell, has been working on this with her staff, so hopefully we will have some progress for you next month.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Ms. Bolton, as chair of the Finance Committee, would you please present the March 11, 2015 committee meeting report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I present it as written, but I would note the second action that's mentioned on the first page, where indeed points out that indeed First Student has had some trouble throughout the year meeting the needs and adhering to our contract that we have with them, and that in Finance Committee with the treasurer and superintendent, it was determined certainly that we are maybe needing to find additional services from other vendors if possible, and that we have no real interest in absorbing additional costs from First Student. Also, as often happens, another kind of tangent was approached or raised when we were talking about E-rate, and indeed to make sure that the board is aware that the administration's going to be maybe revisiting the issue of pooling, which was something that was ended a couple of years ago, and then we were kind of leading the state, but they're going to be coming back with some thoughts about that, and we probably need to get ourselves ready for that dialogue. And then also Mr. Miles, Assistant Superintendent Miles, reminded us that we probably need to make ourselves available, particularly on Thursdays in the next several weeks, to perhaps testify. And then also for action tonight, I know that Treasurer Wagner is bringing forth the idea of an appointment for the tax review folks and what have you, and that's, hopefully we'll be able to be informed about that. And then we do have a couple of policies still out there that we will ultimately bring to you, talk about something lasting a long time. The other piece is that there was a review of the current audit plan, and we did reiterate that some of the things could be changed and taken care of in memo form, but that we were pretty adamant about needing to have student services audit continue, largely because of the whole child initiative and our interest in our special services that we provide. And then also Mrs. Bates is going to be making an assignment tonight for the whole board regarding the audit committee having a role regarding levy discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Do board members have any questions about the committee of the whole report written March 18, 2015? All right, we need a voice vote to accept the committee reports as written. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Fantastic. Now into the section for new business. Tonight's presentation will be the Leadership Action Business Education. We have Doug Adams from PNC, Senior Vice President, the team leader, Jane Keller from the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative, CEO and President, Laura Mitchell, our own Deputy Superintendent, and Janet Walsh, Director of Public Affairs. Ms. Mitchell.
And President Coons, I have a couple other people. Also, I'd like to introduce Glenn Bitzenhofer and also Brian Cobb from the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi. Hi, I am like super excited to be here this evening. And as you can see, I've brought some friends along with me to talk about a really exciting initiative that links very well to the My Tomorrow initiative. So you all may be very familiar with this roadmap. You've seen it plenty of times over the course of this school year. And when we look at our initiative, whether we're talking about the high expectations around curriculum or the one-to-one technology initiative or advisory, all these things we're doing are really geared to help us lead up to our kids being career ready and able to go into the military, a job, college, whatever they choose. But the important piece is that when they leave CPS, they are truly prepared to enter whatever realm that they want to. It is a choice that they make. And so I'm really excited to have, as I said, some friends along here with us this evening. Their being here is a real testament to the community in Cincinnati. We are truly blessed to have such great partners come to the table and work with us on a daily basis. And again, we have our business community who is here and really willing to pitch in to offer us a great part of our initiative around My Tomorrow, and that is providing career-based learning experiences for our kids actually in the workplace and also in the school. So without further ado, to belabor my comments, Jane will come up and talk from CYC, and then Doug Adams as well. So again, we are so appreciative and very, very thankful to have their partnership at the table.
Thanks, Laura, very much. Good evening to board and the board members. My hat today is not the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative. My hat today is part of the Leader Action #1 class for a new program for the Chamber. And we were asked to look at workforce development. And so there was a team of 22 people. We split into 2 projects, multi-generational, one that looked at what we could do with adult populations and one that looked at what we could do with youth. And so this is what our project is about. So one of the first things always as you sit down as a group and after you gather information, we had an awful lot of opportunity to gather great information around the community and what was going on within the community. is to set your direction and your mission. And so ours is really very simple. It is about connecting young people who have great potential with workforce, and to do that in a way that they have an opportunity to be connected with professionals out in the community. So our strategy was, it's really two words come to mind: connect and collaborate. And so it's that opportunity of knowing the great work of My Tomorrow and that initiative, and to what Laura talked about is, how do we take My Tomorrow, engage businesses with it, and bring it to life from an experience standpoint. So what we first looked at is really to look at what was already in place within Cincinnati Public Schools. There's some great business partnerships that have been very long-term within the school system. So we're looking at that, and then how can we build on that in order to scale it across the multitude of high schools, 7th through 12th, to engage more businesses so CPS students really have an opportunity to connect with professionals. And so our approach around that was to work as one team. And so we started out working the Leadership Action Group, and then Laura's working obviously with My Tomorrow, and we thought, let's work as one team. And so we started regularly meeting before the Christmas holidays, and then have been meeting twice per month, working as one team in order to accomplish what you're going to hear about tonight. So obviously one of the first things that we always want to do is a gap analysis to make sure that we're understanding what the needs are and do an assessment around that. And so there's two up here, but there's actually three groups that we touch base with. One was with the businesses, one was with the schools, and of course, our students. And so from a business perspective, what we went to existing businesses and asked them a series of questions that were created with the one team, with CPS and with the businesses, and also got some quantifiable ranking as well. And what I will tell you, all the existing businesses were very, very positive about the work they do with Cincinnati Public Schools. And we had them rank it on a scale, and it was at the top end of it. With that being said, they said there's some things to improve in order to engage going forward. And so they gave us some of the gaps. And they said, based on the size of our community in Cincinnati Public Schools, there's a relatively small amount of businesses working with the school. So we have a real opportunity to scale up and get more businesses connected. The other thing is, Cincinnati Public Schools is a large school system. One of the things they thought that would be a positive moving forward is really a single point of entry. What they find is when they go to one school, there's one way to work. They go to another school, there's another way to work based on what that school is doing or the culture of the school. So they were very much looking for a single point of entry that can be consistent across the school system. And then the other thing was about the engagement from stakeholders. So we also heard is at one school they might be doing one thing. Why can't they do the same thing at another school and maybe just shape it a little bit versus reinventing things all over again? So what they were looking for is maybe some consistency and some constancy going on with the work that they were doing with students. So from the Cincinnati Public Schools perspective, it's great of what already is My Tomorrow. It's really getting some standard engagement activity. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Of all the work that's going on with My Tomorrow, how do we bring in the experiential piece and connect it with the businesses? And then the other piece was unclear career paths. Well, with all the great work going on with Naviance, and that's been in existence a couple years, that's exactly what that tool does, is to start about career pathways and conversations and self-interest. So kids have a sense of where their career choices might be, and so then we can start connecting with professionals around that. And then lastly was around, there was no single source of a business navigator established. And so we thought, as part of the work that we've done here, is to create a business advisory council for Cincinnati Public Schools. So we bring the two voices together, the great work that's going on educationally and academically, and then the business right here on the other side of how can we help make that live for students and relevant to their career choices going forward. And then my favorite part is really from the student's perspective. And there were a couple things. We did two focus groups, one at Withrow and one at Schroeder. And what they both, kind of the common is they are just really hungry for guidance around their career opportunities. They want it. And they want to be successful in life. And that they really value that opportunity to learn more about their skills, how that relates to a career, how that relates to their academics, how that relates to their future around additional training after high school, whatever that might be. And their ability then to hear live from professionals. And then lastly is that, and I thought this is just really a wonderful thing for the students, is that they said, you know, they think there's a perception around them, and they want to showcase the great things that are going on with Cincinnati Public Schools, and the best way to do that is to get out and get connected with businesses. And so Doug, the leader of our project, is going to talk a little bit about the elements of it and some of the work to be done going forward.
Well, thank you for seeing us. We're quite excited about this program. If you think about a lot of the things that are talked about in the media, the business world talks about how there's this skills gap existing between what the students are graduating with and what they need for the skills of tomorrow. And the school system is saying, we've got these kids that need to see all the skills that they need, plus they want to know what's out there in the world that they're going to be entering in when they graduate. So if you think about it, when we were all in school, we had probably your parent come to school day. Parents would come in, they'd tell their class what they did, how they did it, and how they came about that kind of a career path. In today's society, with either two parents working or the fast-paced society we're in, they don't have those times where the parents can come in as much as they used to. So what we are trying to do is connect the two plugs. Think of it as two plugs that we're going to put together, the students, the school system, and the businesses that are out there, to show these kids the opportunities that they have. This is not a mentoring program. That's to be emphasized again. It's not a mentoring program. There are tons of those opportunities out there. But what we look at and we see right now is there's thousands of businesses in Cincinnati proper that aren't connected to the school. And what a missed opportunity we have for those kids to see what's available out there, whether it be a manufacturing job, a construction job, healthcare, or any of the other pillars that the My Tomorrow program is built off of. So if you look at what we're trying to do, we are going to build what's called the Business Education Connectivity Council. It is going to be comprised of 6 different businesses. I'll flip to the next slide. It will be comprised of 6 different businesses, 3 representatives from Cincinnati Public Schools. We envision that being Ms. Mitchell, a career specialist, and one or two or more of the principals that are going to be involved in this program initially, and then 4 BE reps, so business education reps, that are going to be consistently involved. And I think that's very important because we are building the foundation for something to build on in the future. So we're going to crawl, we're going to walk, and we're going to run. So we picked 3 high schools with Laura's help of Aiken, Dater, and Gamble to have the initial process. There's over 300 kids that will be graduating from 10th grade to 11th grade this coming spring that we are going to survey to see what their career interests are. Based on that survey, we will then build a career expo this coming fall in which they can learn more about those career opportunities that are of specific interest to them. The 6 business council partners will be the initial seed companies, but they will be able to bring more companies that are their friends and their vendors into the career expos to get them the opportunity. So then you will see we will build at each individual high school mirror councils to those to make it more of a local presence. So it may be that Gamble or Dater has an interest in agriculture. So we would then seed one of those 6 companies being agriculture. But the key would be that most of them will be off the 6 pillars, which are based off of My Tomorrow, which are healthcare, information technology, engineering, manufacturing, and construction, business finance and insurance, environmental sciences, and entrepreneurship. So based on those platforms, we went out and said, okay, we need to set up our initial council, and we went back to businesses that are currently involved with Cincinnati Public Schools because they have experience. They know what's needed, and they know where to go with the right things. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive. to the point that one of them specifically said, this is exactly what we need in public schools to get the businesses engaged. So we've already approached Children's Hospital, Cincinnati Bell, and General Electric, and they are confirmed to be part of this. We've also got the entrepreneurship with Global to Lead being involved, which they are already serving the school, so it's a great program there. We've got tentative approval from Western Southern, so 5 out of the 6 pillars are already built for this program. And we're having meetings hopefully next week with Procter & Gamble to finish off the process. So once we get this in place, this council will then meet on a monthly basis to walk with you, to help support you, and help find the ways to get the businesses in Greater Cincinnati connected into your school system. As you will see in the handout, this is the expectations that we have of the businesses that are coming on board. The really interesting part of this is what we're asking from a financial standpoint from businesses, 0. We want their time, we want their people, we want their talent. We want them plugged in because after they plug in, hopefully they'll get even more connected and want to take that next step to where they have people engaged on a regular basis in schools other than just the 5 times. We are expecting 5 different interactions with these companies. 3 of them will be in the school system themselves. 2 of them will be at the place of business. Again, if we're going to make it experiential, we have to get the kids out of their environment and to see the other part of the world that exists. Because even where I live, my son might go in a 5-mile radius around where he lives, and that's it. So we want to expand their horizons to see all what Cincinnati has to offer. So whether they have to go to Mason, whether they have to go to Northern Kentucky, we want them to see everything that's available to them for their career standpoint. Because if you look at some of the kids we surveyed, you know, they may want to be in the healthcare profession. They may want to be a doctor, but they're getting C's and D's in science. Well, that's not a great thing, but there are other occupations other than just doctors to be in the healthcare industry. And in talking to General Electric and Cincinnati Bell in particular, they were very excited because they said, you know, we're just not a telephone company. We have HR, we have accounting, we have technicians, we have IT, we have salespeople. So they have this entire career out there that most people don't even know. They just say, it's a phone company. So we are going to open the eyes of these students to the different things that are out there. The Career Expo will be the start. Then we'll have a process of getting the people into the schools. It'll be a very set agenda of what they're going to talk about. That way, when they go to Dater, they go to Gamble, they go to Aiken, everybody's singing out of the same hymnal, and they know what we're trying to get across to the kids. So it's a commitment. We've asked the people that originally come on board for this to be there for a 3-year term. So again, it's consistency, it's staying in place. It's not that businesses are coming in because this might be the hot little program that comes out. We're going to be here for the long term for you. So as you can see on the screen, this is kind of the timeline. We are also going to ask the businesses to provide mock interviews, to maybe do some resume review of the kids. But again, the kids being involved with the businesses is where things will start to take place. We had a formal memorandum of understanding signing last week, as you see here in the picture. So it truly is. The Chamber of Commerce is behind us. The business community is behind us. Leadership Action will continue to be behind us, and the Cincinnati Public Schools are walking right beside us. So I believe the next thing is a short video that we presented this past Friday at our Leadership Action graduation. Kind of gives you a little bit more understanding and details of what we're trying to do, and this will, I believe, be on the website going forward. So.
Leadership Action is a program that was just started by the Chamber of Commerce. And it's kind of a follow-up program or a layer-on program to Leadership Cincinnati, which Leadership Cincinnati more addresses multiple needs in the community. Leadership Action is specifically involved in trying to address one need in the community. And this year we're focusing on workforce development. So where workforce development comes in is how you fit businesses with the jobs that are there. In order for us to be a global economy and really be competitive in the global landscape, we have to have a technological workforce that can really help create those jobs for tomorrow and make Cincinnati a vibrant community.
Leadership Action's partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools is a very exciting one. It's a very nice complement to our initiative, My Tomorrow. My Tomorrow envisions that 100% of our 7th graders will graduate within 6 years prepared to actively pursue their chosen career. And this is outstanding to have the opportunity to make careers come alive in the work setting. So we expect this initiative to be transformational. We expect that it will transform our schools, our students, and our district. And so thinking of transformational, we've actually revamped the curriculum within our high schools, making sure that it's really rigorous, that kids are ready for college and a career. We've also put cutting-edge technology within our schools, as well as provided professional development for our educators.
Well, I think we have a great opportunity as a community to come together around this. I think we often hear of some of the startling statistics around the gaps in the jobs available and those individuals being able to meet those jobs. So I feel like this initiative is a way to close that gap. We have the resources, we have interested individuals who are competent, capable, and ready, and we have students who are eager and willing to learn and engage in those possibilities.
We're all looking for great talent in our organizations. We get involved in the city, we get involved through our educational partners to make sure we have that employment branding, first and foremost, for people to understand we are an employer of choice. Every company does that. But it comes down to talent. Nothing more than the talent that we're looking for to fill those open requisitions that we have in our organizations. And if we don't have it, we have to build it. And this is an opportunity for organizations to build that talent that they're looking for.
Our plan is to make sure that our students are thoroughly prepared for the interactions that we'll have with our professionals. And so we're going to be offering coursework for them all along the way to make sure that they're ready. And so starting off this summer, actually in August of 2015, we're going to host a career boot camp for our kids to be able to participate in. And then in September, our professionals will interact with our students in a career fair within each school. And then our professionals will also be interviewed by our students so they can learn more about their chosen profession. In addition, in the early winter, we're going to have our students participate in job shadowing experiences right in the work site, as well as a resume review with our professionals so they can get feedback on a resume. And then in the spring, we're going to host mock interviews for our students to participate in with our professionals.
The success of GE Aviation and any business depends on a well-prepared workforce. To ensure that our community is vibrant and strong, it is important that we partner with our region's future employees long before they enter the workforce, which really means we need to connect with the high school students today.
I think it's important for businesses to get connected to the Cincinnati Public Schools because that's where the workforce of tomorrow is coming from. And when you look at the business needs right now, the business has tons of job openings, but they don't find the people to fill them that have the skills they need. So what the new Business Education Connectivity Council that we're proposing will do just that. It will connect the students with the businesses that are out there and will help the students to see the possibilities that exist for their careers. I think back to when I was in school, you'd have Bring Your Dad to School Day, and your dad would sit there and tell everybody what he did. Well, in today's society, we don't have those opportunities to bring parents into the school system, to show the different things that are out there. So our hope for this program is that by connecting the businesses to the students, we will get them to see the opportunities that are out there. We'll get the businesses involved in creating the workforce of tomorrow.
And that is the Business Education Connectivity Council. Thanks to Janet for putting the film together. Thanks to Mary and Laura for their support. We're very excited about getting this off the ground, getting the group together for the first time, and really bringing a program to Cincinnati Public Schools that hopefully will be a good partner for you in the years to come. So I will be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Any questions or comments from board members? I heard a lot of whispers of how impressive it was under people's breaths.
That's why we don't have any questions.
I'll start it. I think it's great. I think it fits into the big inside-out strategic plan of CPS, which is called My Tomorrow, which is building up and building down. I also think it fits wonderfully in I like, on behalf of the school district, to claim that we started the Cincinnati Renaissance by getting $1.2 billion from the taxpayers to rebuild the city, and said that last week in front of a bunch of city council people, and I'm happy to say it every chance I get. I think this is the next step of continuing the Cincinnati Renaissance, and I know that you all obviously have seized it and know it and understand it because of the workforce development is so crucial to the region's growth. And as a homer, so to speak, I also think this fits very well into the Whole Child Initiative, more so than academic achievement even does, because preparing kids for the workforce is really approaching the whole child more so than can we move a decimal point here or there on these very crucial high-stakes tests. And finally, I think, again, as a whole homer on CPS, I'm proud of it, the little school districts can't compete with us on this. This will be one of the many things we have in the marketplace that will make us very, very different and very competitive. And again, it will feed, I think, our open enrollment policies and opportunities, because other school districts just won't have the capacity to do what you all have started down the road to do. And it's just great. It's just great. Thank you so much for your leadership, everybody. Thanks, Jane, and thanks, Laura, and everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Bolden. Ms. Bates?
I think this is really exciting, and one of the reasons why I think it's really exciting, and it's something we really have to bring to our communities, is, okay, so board members, when we go out in the community, what do we hear all the time? We hear, yes, vote ahead. But I mean, and that's part of this, but there's a whole array of careers that are available to our students, not just, one area of voc ed, but that is all we hear. So by partnering with you, I would also hope that, we would use our expertise in getting the word out to the community that these are the types of jobs that exist, and that's the direction we're moving our kids toward, not just pushing them into, certain little niches that, other people think are good, college. How many times have you heard college isn't for everybody? And it's usually from somebody whose every child went to college. But anyway, I think this is great, but I also think that another component is taking it to the community and making them aware of what we're all doing.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Ms. Hoffman?
I was going to say, I think one of the kids said it best from what we heard in the introduction of the presentation too, that they think that there's a perception out there about who they are and what we have to offer in CPS, and the fact that there's going to be hundreds of professionals coming in into our buildings and seeing what we have to offer, and then meeting our kids. And I think we all say this all the time, like, just come meet our kids. You're going to be impressed. Like, our kids are fantastic. And so for our kids to be able to tell their own stories, to be able to share with all of these business leaders and who they are and what their aspirations are, and then the leaders in business here being able to help them see how they're going to get there. It's just such a great opportunity. And as Board Member Bolton said, the more people we can get into our buildings, meeting our kids, seeing what we have to offer, can't do anything but good stuff for attracting more people to our district as well. So it's a win all around.
I would second that emotion. Through our interviews with the students and with the high school principal, you've got a top-notch staff. The story just needs to be told, because it's for, every good step you take forward, there's two back, but there's so many good that aren't getting publicized in the school system. You've got fabulous kids, you've got fabulous principals, you've got a fabulous staff, and it's time to get that message across to everybody and get the businesses connected so that they can't say, we aren't getting the skills needed to teach these kids in order to get them into the workforce. It's going to take that away from the businesses, that they can't say, hey, we don't get the skills, because they've got a seat at the table, which is the most important part of this whole process.
Who's up, Mr. Manera?
Yeah, you pretty much captured everything I was going to say, but that's amazing, because that allows me to then ask a question. So as you move forward, I'm sure you'll identify industries maybe that would like to get involved but wouldn't know how, and it seems like you have an amazing team that can help those industries kind of see how this plays out and getting involved in our schools. I mean, for a big company that's been around helping us, like GE and Procter & Gamble, that might seem simple, but I'm sure there's other industries out there that once they catch wind on on this, and we'll be able to connect kids that might be interested in that. You're developing some sort of model, I guess, that you can then introduce to other industries that want to do this with our schools.
Exactly. You think of how many vendors GE can bring to the table of smaller companies that may never get a seat at the table or never hear about what's going on, that we can connect, whether it be somebody that's in the local community for that school, or whether it be somebody out in Mason, because there are some wonderful manufacturing jobs that are available where kids can do an awful lot of things in the future, but they don't know those jobs are there, and they don't know what they pay, and when they hear what they pay, it's quite astounding, because there are a lot of my customers that do that. Or that you get in the healthcare industry, and there's a lot of other career paths other than just doctors, and they start to see that, or attorneys, they get to see there's other parts of the attorney practice that need to be filled just as well. So I think we got a lot of really good partners to the table, and it's going to just continue to expand from here.
Mr. Nelms.
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, excellent presentation, but I like the part that talks about the real-world connection and the allowance of having a child have the precursor to finding the right career fit. You alluded to quite often about how it used to be, because I remember watching my father, who retired in construction 35 years, go to work every day, good provider, never had a lot of time for us. And I heard my brother say, you know, Daddy never has a lot of time for us. And the hardest job I want to do is push a pencil. And he retired as a Navy captain. But I remember that real life connectedness that gave me an opportunity to explore the options that you talked about. And then VOCAD is a piece of that. So it's kind of like we keep talking about the holistic approach to education. And this, to me, empowers, and it's internal, and it's personal, and it's interpersonal, other than the external approach to this career path of readiness that we feel every child should at least be exposed to, but every child needs to have other options that they need to consider. So,
Well, you think of the construction industry itself. You may start here as a general laborer, but how many small businesses are out there that started because somebody started in the general trades, but then went on to start their own company? So you look at the entrepreneurial component that we've got, again, the pillar at the table, and suddenly these kids can see, hey, I can start my own business. I can be my own boss. And that's, again, eye-opening to somebody who's 17 years old, saying, man, I can do something really big out there.
Vice President Dansby.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. It really excites me to see the magnitude of the partnerships that are laid out, and I'm in agreement with you that there is such a great story within our district. We just have to tell the story better. I'm wondering, well, a couple things, but first and foremost, it looks like you've covered all bases. I'm wondering if you've considered challenges that you might have with our students, or barriers to their success, or maybe how you're planning for those kinds of things.
I think you take it from the crawl, walk, run. We're in the crawl pilot stage with three schools. We've got 12 more to go. We got some great counsel from people that are already involved, and they said, whatever you do, don't go all of them. Learn first, take those steps, make your corrective actions to take the next step. So there's hurdles we're undoubtedly going to encounter. But again, as we walk together through this, we've got your folks together, with leadership action folks together, with the business community together, and quite honestly, it's some of the biggest businesses here in Cincinnati that are already engaged. So we should be able to encounter any hurdle and get right over it with great thinking together.
Yeah, I think so too. And the other question that I would have would be, how are young people finding out about the program, or how is it being marketed to the community for folks to know?
Well, from the community standpoint, it'll be a lot of hand-to-hand conversations, using the connections that we know, whether it be through Leadership Action and our initial class, through the Leadership Cincinnati Network. There's a lot of businesses that we have touched or do touch in every day that we can bring to the table. From the student standpoint, I'm sure it'll be on the My Tomorrow platform. It'll be part of the curriculum that the teachers start to get entrenched. As Laura mentioned, the boot camp. So as the spring hits, the students are going to start getting information about the boot camp. Now, you can't make them come during the summer, but for those who want to excel and want to find out more about business and want to find out about a career, they're going to be able to take that opportunity to start learning early into the process. And then the career expos at the schools will be the
Yeah, very exciting. I have a personal story with a 17-year-old who is full of conversation about vocational opportunities and what their career steps are. So this is dead on, right on, and I'm really excited for our students.
Great. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my team up here. Of course, Jane Keller, who you already know, Glenn Bitzenhofer. Again, he's an entrepreneur, former P&G person that started his own company. And then we got Brian Cobb from Cincinnati, Greater Cincinnati Airport. So thanks to them and the other people that are on our team to help create this.
Ms. Bolton, did you have one more
A
question?
real specific question, and I'm sorry, because it sounded like that was a wrap-up, but the grade that this starts in is
10th graders riding
10th
to
grade,
11th.
rising up, okay. All right, thank you.
Well, I don't want to be too redundant, but I just want to echo our glowing board members here. We like these types of presentations. Makes us feel good about what we're doing at CPS. And I know with Ms. Keller and Ms. Mitchell, the sky's the limit for you guys. So please keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any kudos?
Well, I wasn't handing anything, so I have to improvise on the floor. But I want to just say there's a number of teams in our district that kind of made it to the sectional championships in the city. Used Girls, Taft, Aiken, Stroder, Walnut Hills. Am I missing anybody else? Stroder had a tendency to reach the furthest, and then you had UC Xavier, Northern Kentucky University, and Thomas More. So I just want to say kudos to those student athletes that, and I guarantee you we can find at least one on each team that matriculated through CPS. So kudos to those teams. That's how that's connectivity. The superintendent.
And President Coons, actually, I have a shout out to everyone involved in the Riverview move, both in and out of the building, our staff, the staff at the school, the students. It went very, very smoothly, so kudos to all.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Ms. Bates, will you please present the retirements?
Yes, from our certificated personnel staff, Patrick B. Herringhouse, teacher at Riverview East, and Jessica M. Simpson, a teacher at SCPA, are both retiring. From our civil service personnel, Letitia Drummond, Diane Horton, Linda Robb, Darren Snow, and Margie Warnsing. We wish them well and congratulate them on their retirement, and hope that this isn't the last time we see them.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. We are now at our item on our agenda for the hearing of the public. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Please respect the time. Mrs. Wagner will be our timekeeper. When the buzzer goes off, your 3 minutes are up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. When your name is called, please come to the podium to speak. Our first speaker tonight is Dion Edwards. So, Mr. Edwards, you can come on to the podium. Our next speaker after Mr. Edwards will be Rhonda Shire. Did I say it right? Yeah. Okay, great. Sorry. And then finally, Allison Palacis.
Where I know you from?
Mr. Edwards.
Hello, board. How are you doing today? I'm going to keep this brief because I'm doing double duty, as you all know.
I was going to ask you, yeah, who's taking care of the equipment?
I have it under control, trust me.
All right.
Really what I want to talk to you about is we did something different. Typically, with career tech programs like the one we have at Woodward, Aiken, and that sort, we do 2 advisory committee meetings required by the state. So what we decided to do is add another one, a third one, where we brought all the engineering cluster schools together and discuss what we could do to help each other. Typically, it's not what you do. You usually want to stay separate because it's kind of competitive. But we wanted to work together to make sure we ensure that we, 1, could share our resources, and 2, we were giving the best quality education to the students. There's also a third reason. We want to actually look into maybe collaborating on a couple of projects, including creating a district-wide collaborative robotics team. We have one to each school, and then compete in the first competition at the higher level. I know Walnut Hills currently competes at what I call the medium level. We want to go to the big boy robots, which we've been doing at West High for quite a long time. But the problem is, if you don't have the collaboration, most schools come with 2 teams, maybe connected to other schools in their district. We want to do the same thing so we can share our resources and come that way. And what we found out is that we had a bunch of partners. We had P&G, we had Meyer Tool, we had GE, we had educational partners like Cincinnati State, Miami, Cincinnati, or UC, all come together and want to work with us and get this taken care of. And we had a really good discussion. Now, this is our first meeting, and we just wanted to share the minutes with you so you have a copy for yourselves and let you know this is what we're doing. We want to be pretty transparent and let you know that we're trying to do something different, and we know that engineering is not the easiest career cluster to be in, but it is a very exciting one, and it doesn't always require the high-level math, high level science, it just requires interest. And we have a lot of kids in this district with interest, and we want to make sure that we get them in the right place and have the opportunity to do things with it.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. We appreciate Ms. Shire, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a parent at the School for Creative and Performing Arts, and we had a really special thing that happened this weekend, and I just wanted to share with you something that went on. The SCPA High School Drama Ensemble presented a diary for Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, the play, and it was so incredible. And I just wanted to tell you a couple of things that they did when they collaborated with some other departments within the school. First of all, they worked together with the Center for Holocaust and Humanity Education, and this organization brought in it's called a movable display, and the school set it up in the lobby outside of the theater so that people could see it throughout the weekend. And along with that, we had a representative come that was an actual Holocaust survivor, and it was so cool. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about his story, if you don't mind. His name was Dr. Henry Fenichel. He was born in the Netherlands in 1938. Shortly after the Nazi rise to power, sensing danger, Henry's mother sent a request for the relocation to Palestine. After Henry's father was deported by the Nazis, Henry and his mother went into hiding in a convalescence home. When Henry was 6 years old, they were discovered hiding, and they were then transported to the Westerbork detention camp. Shortly after arriving, they learned of a prisoner exchange that would allow a select number of Jews to escape to Palestine. Through a miraculous series of events, Henry's mother was able to get them on the list, and in 1944, Henry and his mother and 220 individuals left Bergen-Belsen, eventually arriving to freedom in Palestine. Henry came in before the play was presented, and he did a master class with a lot of the students, and he talked about what life was like living through the Holocaust. He shared all of these experiences, and then he came to the show, and we were able to honor him each night, and he got up and, sort of did a little bow and stuff, but it was just such a really moving experience, and it was so great for the students as well. We had over 872 people attend the show over the weekend, and then on top of all of that, Sydney Gabbard, our box office manager, and Dr. Rudnick, our artistic director, they went out and they donated tickets to 3 underprivileged schools. The schools that came were the Rothenberg Preparatory Academy with 114 kids, Chase Elementary had 80 kids come, and then Roll Hills High School had 110 kids. The kids not only came to watch the show, but ahead of time, Dr. Rudnick put together a packet of information for the teachers to use as a guide to teach about living through the Holocaust, the story of Anne Frank, and everything about it, so that when the kids came there, they were prepared and they knew what to expect. After the show, they got to go backstage and take a tour of the stage and the set and the costume rooms, and then they also had a little discussion about what it's like to put on a show. So it was very cool. That's all I just wanted to share.
Great. Great news.
Thank you. There's one more performance tomorrow at 10 o'clock if you all want to come.
10 a.m. must be. They're not up that late.
Ms. Palacios, welcome.
Hi, I wish I had more than 3 minutes so I can say how excited I am since I'm a Dater High School teacher about this new initiative, but that's not what I'm here for. Greetings, board members. I'm Allison Palacios. As I said, I'm an ESL specialist assigned to Dater High School, and my comments this evening are in regards to my daughter's denial of enrollment at Dater Montessori. So last spring, I was told to fill out an open enrollment application for my son who has been attending Dater Montessori for 5 years. And then I was told, wait, don't fill that out. He's grandfathered in. So a little bit confused over that. And then in October of 2014, I received a verbal rejection to my sibling priority enrollment from my daughter. So I have my email where I did actually apply for it and then got called by the early childhood department and told that her application was shredded and she would not be allowed to apply until April. Fast forward to March, when a teacher at Dater Montessori followed up with early childhood and said, "What's going on with little Mila Palacis? When do I get my new Dater Gator? I'm so excited to have the sibling of Nico Palacis." Says mom can apply in April for an out-of-district slot. But then it says actually she needs to go to the office on April 6th. Again, a little unclear. I also did attempt to enroll her when she turned 3 and was turned away then as well. Fast forward to March 20th, where I got a friendly reminder from customer service saying that as an employee of Cincinnati Public Schools, I can enroll my child in April. And it refers to the board policy from January 2013, which is this one-page policy, and in addition, I know there's the magnet policy, and in neither one of them, it does not reference employees' children. So I don't know what this email is trying to say, but it was sent at 4:33 p.m. on Friday, and a deadline of Wednesday at 4:30. I'm supposed to reply. I got to school, I broke up a fight, all kinds of stuff today. I didn't have a chance to even look at this. So my question is, I mean, it's very clear-cut in the open enrollment question and answers from Ohio that employees' children are residents. It even addresses preschool children, which is the case for mine. What policy did the administration rely on to deny my child entrance to Dater Montessori as an employee of Cincinnati Public Schools? I was hired in July 2009, my 6th year of teaching, with a strict reliance that I would be able to bring my children to Cincinnati Public Schools. And I enrolled my son, not knowing that 5 years later, I wouldn't know if he was going to have a spot every year. And he has special needs. That is not something that he can handle, not knowing if he can walk into Dater Montessori the following year. Had I known that, maybe I would have made a different choice. I'm thankful that I have experienced Dater Montessori. It has been an incredible environment for my child. But are you asking us to relocate 6 years later in order to have my child stay there and my new one enroll? So to wrap up, as Eve Bolton mentioned in the March 9th meeting, the law is the law, and I hope you take that into consideration as you decide your teachers' children's future. Thank you.
Ms. Palacis.
I know we don't have comments, but, you know, here's my issue, because Ms. Palacios is too humble to say this, but I know the hundreds of students. I'm not talking about 20 students. I'm talking about hundreds of students that she has served in this district. And to be honest with you, this is my opinion. I want to see us retain the best, who is definitely making consider what is best for our teachers and the rest of our district. You know, Ms. Palacios, you do an amazing job. I work with the children that you work with, and you know, I find it that it's hard for me. I have to apologize to you that this is what you've gone through. So I urge that we consider this issue and that we make it as soon as possible, make a decision.
Ms. Hoffman.
Yeah, so I think we also know that this was assigned to the policy committee to figure out the issue of the siblings of out-of-district employees. And so we do have a recommendation today coming out of our policy committee that we want to make to the board for how we would amend board policy for those siblings. And so we were assuming we would do that during other business.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. To the resolutions. Ms. Bolton, will you please present the resolution for board consideration?
Yes, I will, and the treasurer will help us. I know the board understands it, but since we're, you know, with the public and television, it's important, especially with the kind of weird language. This is a resolution to advance payment of taxes, be it resolved by the Board of Education, Cincinnati City Schools District, that the auditor and treasurer of Hamilton County are hereby requested to respectively to draw and pay to the treasurer of the Board of Education of Cincinnati City School District upon written request of Jennifer M. Wagner, treasurer, CFO, or Teresa A. Johnson, assistant treasurer, in accordance with section, and we talk about the Ohio Revised Code, money derived from taxes or other sources payable by law to the county treasurer. To account for the Board of Education of Cincinnati School District and lawfully applicable for the purpose of any funds due in any settlement. So it's all kind of whatever, but I appreciate a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Ms. Bates. Any discussion or comments?
I refer to the treasurer what this is.
So this is an annual requirement, and the last time the board did it was under the previous treasurer, so they're requiring that my name be approved as the requester. But I have to request monies that they collect on our behalf every week. And it's just a standard form letter, but they want an official appointment by resolution.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Mrs. Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Coons?
Aye. Ms. Bates, will you please present your resolution for board consideration?
Thank you. I have a resolution approving students eligible for subsidy reimbursement in lieu of transportation for the 2014-15 school year. I present this resolution as printed for adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Any discussion or comments? Without further ado, Mrs. Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
President Coons?
Okay. That's all right. So apparently the resolution we had the wrong date on it, but this is the one from October 27th, so if we could null that previous vote and get the actual resolution, Ms. Bruckner, administrative staff is going to get it right now. Apologies.
Not the previous one we already voted on, but this one.
The one we just voted on.
Yeah, the one we just voted on was dated October 27, 2014.
Superintendent, for some reason, has the right one.
I have the right, we have the right one, so
Okay.
I guess it was updated in our packet. So I can pass over a copy of the updated one.
That'd be great.
And it's just the date that's changed.
I think it's just the dates.
You talking about
Well, then we
the
can-
transportation one or the other one?
I mean, I would,
It's just the dates, but.
The transportation.
it's the same.
No, the one we voted on first is okay.
Huh? Yeah, we're talking about the transportation one.
We just need to amend
Friendly
the
amendment?
date.
Yes. May I make a friendly amendment to the motion maker?
I think that's fine.
That we have the appropriate date, which would be March 23rd.
Great. So, friendly amendment. Mrs. Wagner, will you please call a new roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
Coons?
Aye. Sorry for the confusion there. And so now we'll take us back to the beginning of our meeting when we added an item to our agenda. I'm going to introduce a resolution to the board, not to be voted on, no 48-hour waiver. We do have the President and CEO of the Cincinnati Saints in attendance tonight to help add to the discussion. But essentially what you see before you, board members, is a resolution to request a waiver for alcohol use at the Withrow University High School's athletic field during the Cincinnati Saints professional soccer games. You see a chart with the schedule for the season listed below, and additional information about the Saints, which highlights some of the great work they've been doing. We've partnered with the Saints for a couple years now. Mr. Satterwhite, if you would, please come to the podium and tell us a bit more about what this all includes. I know you've been a part of recent policy committee meetings, and we would like to ask for the policy chair to share the discussion that came out tonight. And the intent was not to necessarily get ahead of policy, but rather to make sure that we at least introduce this so that a decision can be made as quickly as possible for one of our proud partners. So.
Well, can I request clarification first? I know that there's discussion and policy, rightly so. It needs to continue that work. I think they're doing an amazing job. I've been able to sit in. But as we are right now, I want to be clear, was this specific request passed on to the policy to approve, or just is part of the discussion to figure out what we're going to do with the policy? And if it wasn't specifically sent to policy to approve, it's still PPE as it stands right now who makes this decision. So I just wanted to figure out how we were going to conduct this conversation, because I know Ms. Hoffman has been very diligent of getting the right information for the policy, but as we stand right now, PP is the one in charge of that.
Yeah, as the chair of the PPE committee, I will tell you that there were 3 requests for alcohol waivers on the table simultaneously. The policy committee asked PPE to sort of hold off on approving any of those until they could work through or sort through a universal policy related to alcohol waivers. One waiver dropped off and said it was taking much too long. The second was approved at our March 9th meeting, which is our last meeting. This is the only and last waiver on the table for request. So I think to answer your question, as of today, this request resides with PPE. As a courtesy to policy, I, as the chair, said we'd wait, we said somewhere between 45 and 60 days while they did really diligent work. And I have to agree with Board Member Manera, you guys have been working like the Dickens. And we've talked about this repeatedly as a full board, you know. So yes, it still resides in PPE while policy comes up with a universal policy. So this request is not a request of the policy committee, it is a request of the PPE committee.
So on that note, how do you, Mr. President, how do you want this conversation to go? Because, I mean, I believe as a community partner, the Saints need to continue to make, especially when there's money involved in a business plan that they have, and Mr. Satterwhite has been kind enough to sit in meetings and explain that. And I'm not making a decision for anybody on the board. I just want to get clarification on where we're going with this conversation, right? Because there is a lot of information and there's a lot of things to consider. But I just want to clarify where we're going with this.
I would like to clarify. The purpose for bringing this to the agenda tonight is to obviously have an opportunity for the full board to discuss this particular request for alcohol waiver. For months now, policy has been, as you said, diligently working on the district's policy around alcohol use at our facilities. This is a specific request for a waiver for specific events, which, the board may always make decisions on based on our current policy. So that's why it's here in front of us tonight. And in our earlier discussion when adding it to the agenda, Board Member Bolton and Bates brought up the issue of this being maybe put on too quickly, and so we don't necessarily have the authority to vote on it this quickly. And so you're nodding your head because she's our senior board member, so we know she's right about that. And so where we landed was we were going to introduce what's on here, make sure all board members are familiar with what the Saints would like to do, and then also ask any questions. The rest of the board can catch up on where policy has gotten, but essentially, I think out of respect to our partner in the Saints, the board needs to make a decision, and the sooner the better, and so that's why it's brought to us tonight.
Can I ask how this is different than what we did on Wednesday in Cal? Like, coming out of the last policy committee meeting, we said we need to hear from the full board about the full board's thoughts, feelings, opinions on this kind of alcohol use, because what we had heard from the board up until now, what we were using to consider the policy, was really about the more typical one-off events that we had, and we didn't feel as a policy committee we could put forth recommendations on something like beer sales at a stadium unless we had heard from the full board. And we asked Dave Durker to come and give his opinion as well. And so we did all of that on Wednesday, got the board members' input, got Mr. Durker's input. We've heard from the Saints twice now in policy committee, including today. And so I guess I'm curious how this discussion is going to be different than what we did on Wednesday, and that opportunity. I thought we had this opportunity already on Wednesday.
It's my understanding that the time was a bit limited on Wednesday, and also perhaps selfishly I was unable to attend, and so I'd like this opportunity tonight to provide my own singular input on this particular request, and again provide the public forum for Mr. Satterwhite to address any questions as well. So
all of our meetings are public too. I mean, so yeah, I think they've had that opportunity as well.
If, to that point, I think that's well taken. I just have a question. We are introducing this in order to lay over. And I would ask Mrs. Bates if introduction for layover means discussion in the first introduction, or is that merely to get it on the agenda for the following business meeting?
That's more typical.
Yeah.
And then we can schedule time for discussions if need be, be it in PPE or at the next board discussion, and then work out some of the details.
So can I ask a question and or make a recommendation? The next business meeting, which could be a PPE meeting, or no?
It's full board.
It has to be a full board.
Okay.
I mean, it could be discussed at PPE. Be approved at PPE. It has to be approved at a business meeting.
So I guess I'm just confused, and it's not the right forum for me to get this understanding, but when we've done this with other resolutions, they have been discussed and approved through PPE, and then they come to the board for a full vote. That's not the same?
Yeah, and this is a waiver. And again, this happened with the Cincinnati Chamber Orchestra.
I'm just concerned about
weeks
not
ago.
unfair practice from other organizations that we have allowed this, and we said this a year ago, that we were going to be dealing with this.
And I think that you spoke to it, and so did Chairman Hoffman, that there was a request by the policy committee to table the PPE consideration of this waiver because it did represent such a departure from policy and practice and procedure. And you graciously did that. So it's tabled in PPE and it's active at policy. And there was discussion last week, and we're happy to have other discussion and report in. But I think the chairman's ready to report next time rather than this time, if I remember. So, I mean, I'm just saying we can get it introduced, but we normally don't have discussion. And we said earlier, this is not coming out of PPE at this time.
Well, I think we said that about the other request as well, and on March 9th, that did come before the full board, the Cincinnati Chamber Orchestra.
The point there was supposed to be that was one of our more typical requests. We literally had approved that same request last year. And so that wasn't really a departure from the request that we usually approve. But this, like a full season of selling beer at a stadium, is a completely different request than we've had in the past. And therefore, it was sent to the policy committee to figure out how does it fit with our larger policy.
Again, the process for passing a 48-hour waiver and then also voting on the resolution for the chamber, how does that differ from what we're trying to do tonight? And I'll again defer to Ms. Bates for clarification.
Well, yeah, not that I know everything about every policy and how it should, although
Claim it, just claim
I
it.
try to let you think I do, but.
Claim it, or we
Okay,
have to ask Jennifer.
just black and white, if the board can assign, the board can unassign. I mean, so if we want to unassign this from PPE, that's the board's prerogative, is how I see it. We don't have to follow a procedure. We can, the board is in control of its agenda and of its work. So if the full board wants to move this to the full board, then, regardless of what happened, I think that we can do that, or we can choose to do as we have and move it through PPE. But I don't think that the preference really stands. I think it's what we as 7 people want to do.
Okay. I think it'd be remiss to not highlight some of the positive aspects of this waiver now that the discussion has begun. And just, again, to clarify, the Cincinnati Saints has been partnering with Activities Beyond the Classroom and Cincinnati Public Schools for years now. And the opportunity to grow their professional organization, a lot of it hinders on the ability to have concessions at their games. And so this is an opportunity for us to help bring some benefits back to the school. The Cincinnati Saints has just recently set up a 501c3, which would help with fundraising at events beyond these particular games in this waiver, which would bring funding directly to the students of our district. And as you see in the resolution, We're showcasing CPS facilities. Beer sales would be set up through the nonprofit. Insurance would be obtained. There would be adequate security at the site. There would also be an environment established in our communities that would make it a positive feeling, like with Wrigleyville, as we've heard about. Cincinnati Saints is working with several nonprofit organizations, including the Pink Ribbon Girls, Top Soccer, and Most Valuable Kids. They will have beer booths at the Oktoberfest and also the Taste of Cincinnati, completely separate from our school facilities, but the profits from those events will come back to our students as well. And so I would like to ask that I guess in keeping with what the board's preference is, we perhaps assign this or put this resolution on the April, sorry, let me get my calendar.
First, the next board meeting.
Well, we want to do it the first possible date, again, out of respect to Mr. Satterwhite, who, as I look for the date, if you want to add anything to the conversation, please. I'd hate to have you come up here for nothing.
I appreciate you guys thoroughly confusing me on what you guys were talking about earlier. I just, talking with policy members on this for, a couple months now, and, working with them, trying to come up with a long-term policy and so forth. We're realistically just doing this to create something for the city, and at the same time, if we can take something that, maybe is looked down upon with alcohol sales in the school system and so forth, and turn it around and do something for the kids in the community and able to help fund some of the programs that we're helping set up, as well as being able to do other stuff with our community fund, camps, clinics that we can give, for free. That's really what we're looking to use it for, which is why all beer sales are getting funneled through there rather than through the for-profit end of our business. So that's really what we're looking to do, and that's the partnership that we're looking to build, for us to build a professional sporting environment. Yeah, we want to be able to sell the beer so that the people who sit there and enjoy having a beer on a hot summer day like you would at the Reds games or Bengals in the summer and so forth. So that's really what we're looking to do. We're just doing it with soccer. Unfortunately, soccer, the reason we haven't, the soccer in the city hasn't gone to the next level, because there's a huge constituency of soccer people in this city, is we've never had a place to play. We've never had a legitimate place that's in a good location to play, that we're able to produce a sporting event. And, just this case, we're talking about Taft for this, or excuse me, Withrow for this year, because of Taft being redone, their turf and their track and so forth. But realistically, Taft is where we want our home to be, 2 blocks away from all the world-class restaurants that we have in OTR. The streetcars right there, Washington Park's right there, music hall's right there, short trip over to Cincinnati Museum Center. So we want to bring people in, keep them down, make it more of an event all day so that people can see the gorgeous facility that's down at Taft, the gorgeous facility that's at Withrow High School. Basically just stay down there and bring people down into the city, because of all the stuff that's going on down there. It's a no-brainer.
Spades.
The issue here isn't that what you're bringing to us isn't a good proposition. The issue is that we just don't have the time to devote to develop this policy in the time frame that's needed.
Right.
Do you have any more fellows out there, Ms. Hoffman? That's what we need. We need somebody who's dedicated to giving us the background information quickly so we can make a decision, because with, as you saw with our agenda, it's an important decision because we're setting a big precedent, but we're deciding really huge issues as well that we're devoting so much of our time to. This is really a time issue. So if we can resolve that and get, information together so that we can make a good decision, I think we can move it along much more quickly.
Okay.
I think that the timeline that the committee's working from, based upon leadership from the chairman, is that it is being expedited without being rushed. And indeed, much research has been done by general staff and by board staff and general counsel and the committee members, and Mr. Nelms has done research. So I do think that we can live within the timeline that everybody seems anxious to do this. But again, I really don't even like the process that we're rushing it in part to meet a need instead of necessarily develop the best possible policy. But having said that, I'm concerned enough about this to say that I think it is very bad precedent to circumvent the committee's work and the processes of this board to meet the need of somebody else. And I appreciate all that you've done. I've appreciated how patient you've been. But the reality is this is a big departure. This is a big deal. But more particularly, the 501c3 is being formed because they, under current circumstances, they can't sell beer there. It's not just that they're really good people, it meets the legal requirements. So there's so many of these other things that are part of it. And they've been fabulous about trying to figure out ways to meet our concerns about the safety and what have you. We haven't quite figured out necessarily how to meet the concerns of mixed messages. Or the fact that it starts at Withrow, it doesn't go to Taft until the following year. So there are a lot of things here that are at play, but regardless of whatever the policy committee comes up with, it would seem to me that I would think it would be a very bad precedent to circumvent the policy committee's work. And I think tonight there was an attempt to do that, and I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah, I can't speak to that if there was, intent to circumvent anything. My concern is it resides in the PPE committee, and I, am just looking for direction, and to be fair to one constituent is the same to the other. And so I just kind of feel like it's just hung up. And I have been, supportive of coming up with a common policy in that. So I don't like that kind of thing either. And I really get your point. I'm just looking for direction.
Yeah. I think we also just run a lot of risk in pushing forward because it opens, like we heard Mr. Durker say on Wednesday, it opens a Pandora's box. So even if we did vote on this, if it got approved, then whoever comes back to us next that uses our field. So the Pee Wee Football League wants to sell beer at their games. Well, they don't have the same kind of structure and support as the Saints, and that's opening us up to huge. And then the T-ball, and then the Steam wants to do the same. Like this is, once we approve one of these at a stadium selling beer, it opens it up to anybody else who comes to us who doesn't have the same kind of structure and resources behind them to have designated area and paying for, police officers and all those. We have to be methodical in making sure that we have thought through all of the scenarios that would lead us to say, yes, we're going to go forward approving these kinds of waivers under these circumstances, or coming to as a board to say, no, this isn't actually the proper use of our facilities. And that's where we're at with the policy committee right now. We literally scheduled an extra meeting last month so that we could talk about this. So we are trying to move it as fast as we can while still getting all of the right information. And so next step coming out of our meeting today was that I was going to write up a memo to the board outlining the debate that we have had up until now and where the policy committee members stand as of now, and getting that out to everyone. And so I'm assuming we'll still move forward with that.
Have that for PPE Wednesday for discussion?
For Wednesday?
The committee meets Wednesday, and it's a fixed agenda item until a decision is made.
So you need it tomorrow?
Or some update. No, Wednesday will be fine. Wednesday by 11:30. Just so that there's a record of the continuation of the conversation.
If I might also, we understand in policy committee that a commitment's already been made regarding the Saints playing at Withrow this year. So we already know that that's already happened. The question now only is that whether or not they're going to be able to sell beer beginning does the season begin in April? Or?
May 9th.
May 9th. So it's not holding up their plans regarding where they're going to be playing because that's already been lined up, I think. and rightfully so. I mean, I think it's great. So really the only issue is the beer piece and what other kinds of benefits our children will have as a result of this agreement.
So let me help make sure I have the next steps clearly outlined. I think what we've done is had a meaty conversation. We've introduced the topic of the resolution and the waiver, which is, we haven't seen this before, so that's one step in the right direction. And the next opportunity to vote on it would be April 8th at our Wednesday meeting. We can make that a special public. And so in the meantime, we'll have research done, as Ms. Bates suggested, and then also the comments from board members, the feedback from what policies questionnaire came up with today. And so we would then expect a vote on the resolution on April 8th.
Real quick question in regards to information. I know we would want like a security plan and so forth, and I was trying to do that, but I'm not that good at that stuff, and drawing the charts and stuff because my system is out of town. But would like a security plan of where things are going to be roped off, based on aerial shots, that type of stuff. Like, what type of information are you looking for that we can help with to give that, if that makes sense?
Well, I think it's more general information, such as, what kind of permits, what kind of alcohol, is it going to be beer and wine, is it going to be beer, are we going to get the permits, or are the Saints going to get the permits, or anybody? I mean, just those kinds of recommendations, what kind of, if this has been done anywhere else, and are we the first one in the country to do this? I mean, and I'm not on either of these committees, so this is all new. What I received over the weekend was great, but that's the first information I've received.
Yeah.
I think the baseline question, though, before we even get into the details of that we've been discussing in PPE, is this an appropriate, do we as a board feel like this is appropriate use of our facilities? And so I think that's even the place we need to start before we even go down the road of then what would security look like, what would permits look like, what would insurance have to look like, is we still need to come to a consensus as a board of whether or not we feel it's appropriate to be selling alcohol at stadiums.
And I think this conversation has started to flesh some of that out where the full board stands. So again, I apologize for further delay. We do appreciate your patience, Mr.
I do
Senator,
have one
Mr.
request
Nelms.
before we close,
Yeah.
though. My request is for you to invite Mr. Durka to the PPE committee so you can hear from him. He has over 15 years of dealing with facility issues, absence of alcohol. In my research, and someone else can help me if you want to, I have not found one high school in the country that allows alcohol during sporting events. Collegiately and professionally, yeah, and it's a way of life. But again, it's a precedence. I'm open-minded to anybody. I would like to think so, for the most part. But the question is, if this is allowed, then board member Erica, you'll probably be asking the same question. When we open this door with other community individuals coming to request alcohol use, and that would be, we just want to be fair. So it's something to look for, not just in this situation, but we talking about next year and down the road. And also, Mr. Moran, if you can attend that meeting too, so you can give your perspective from the people that do this on a regular basis and do it quite often. In the meantime, if anyone in the audience would like to do a research to see if there's any other school in the country, in the region, in the state that allows alcohol during a sporting event, I would like to know.
Well, I would, if I may, Mr. President, in all diligency to how we do things in community learning centers, I would love to then at that, on the terms on that same request, to hear what the community has to say. After all, Mrs. Bolton did a great job just, affirming that we pretty much have built the city, right?
Yeah.
With taxpayers' money.
I'm taking full credit on behalf of the district.
It would be great to hear what the community feels.
1.2.
And I think different board members have said it, this is different. I mean, this is a professional team, right? To Mr. Nell's point, is a professional team trying to use one of our facilities. So it definitely singles us out. I do also think that it'll be hard to find presidents across the country that has this unique situation. So, point is, I would love to hear what the community has to say about this.
No, one way to do that is simply call on Lincolnware tomorrow and pose the question and see what kind of feedback you get.
Let's make it
You
happen.
can go down the dial and do WLW the same.
I mean, but that's the thing, right? I mean, we owe it to what
That's the
people
quickest
feel.
way to
I mean, it's,
sample.
if we can't come up with just where we come from, we've got to respect what the community also feels about this.
I have a
Speaking of
question.
which,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there is no ability to serve the beer inside the Withrow Stadium, what is your alternative? And I'm asking that because at the Taft High School, you used a parking lot next to the school to serve the beer, where folks would get the beer and then walk to the stadium with the cup of beer in their hand, if I'm correct.
No. So the way it worked last year was you had to be in that specific grass parking lot area that was privately owned by Tri-State Building and Supply. Couldn't take it outside of that fenced off area. That has to do with the permit that you get through the state of Ohio. At Withrow, we don't really have an option. There's, it's basically completely surrounded by woods, parking lot, baseball fields, what have you. There is no park or private lot around there to do that.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm picturing people with cups walking and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think, Mr. Sadoway, it's fair to say that we are trailblazing here. This is the first situation of its kind based on our research in the city, in the state, in the country. And so that's why it's been such an arduous task. Yeah. So again, we do appreciate your patience. We apologize for the length of time it's taken because I know you're on needles and pins. But what we'll do is continue with the research and the process that policy is set up with the feedback from the full board and bring this item back to the board on April 8th.
Thank you. I'm pleased that you guys are even considering it. I know it's a huge monumental task and it's not done, but like you said, we are in a very odd circumstance where it just happens to be that Taft, where we want to build our home and stay there. And we've even talked about, possibly building out and making it bigger and improvements and so forth down the road. But that's where we want to make our home. It just happens to be that it's publicly owned by, a school system. So.
Thank you,
Mr. President, as we said in policy too, the fact that it would start at Withrow has complicated this significantly.
All right. Well, appreciate it. We'll move on to our next agenda item. Thank you, Mr. Sadoway. Next is the report of the superintendent. Ms. Ronan.
Well, as you know, we are in the hiring season. In addition to the 200 teachers who are retiring this year, we also have 6 principals. So we have started meeting, our assistant superintendents have started meeting with the local school decision-making committees to fill those positions. So we have completed we've filled 2 of the 6 positions. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Miles and Ms. Brodnax to come down and say a little bit about the 2 principals who are being recommended in the superintendent's LSDMC, and my understanding he is coming from a blue ribbon school in a suburban district. So Mr. Miles, could you tell us a little bit more about Bob Longworth?
Good evening. After a long process that we started early, and I do want you to be aware of that, we did post those positions in December and January, so we could get the best candidates that we could at Cincinnati Public Schools. The LSDMC did a diligent job coming up with the demographics that they have that are understanding